The massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out like a small moon. Thousands of seats filled the circular room, each one holding a different alien species. Some had scales, others had fur, some breathed oxygen, others needed special masks. But they all had one thing in common today. They were all here to judge humanity. General Sarah Chen sat in the small human section at the bottom of the chamber. Her uniform was clean and pressed. Her face showed no emotion, but inside, she felt nervous. This was the most important day in human history. Today the galaxy would decide if humans could join the interstellar community. Ambassador Zethkar stood up from his seat. He was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to glow under the chamber lights. His people, the Valorians, had been the first to make contact with Earth 5 years ago. He had been kind to humans from the start. Honored council members, Zethkar began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Today we consider the application of the species known as humans. They come from the third planet of a yellow star they call Sol. They have achieved faster than light travel. They have shown they can communicate with other species. By our basic rules, they should be welcomed into our community. A low rumble of voices filled the chamber. Not all of them sounded happy. General Chen could see alien heads turning toward each other, whispering in languages she could not understand. Elder Vosani rose from the center of the chamber. She was ancient, even by her species' long standards. Her people, the Kethmori, had been part of the council for over 10,000 years. When she spoke, others listened. Ambassador Zethkar speaks of rules, she said, her voice sharp like broken glass. But rules exist to protect us all. We must ask ourselves, are humans truly ready to join civilized space? The chamber grew quiet. General Chen felt her heart beat faster. This was not starting well. Elder Vosani touched a control panel in front of her. A huge holographic screen appeared above the chamber. Images began to play. General Chen recognized them immediately. They were scenes from human wars throughout history. The first image showed ancient warriors charging toward enemy lines with swords and spears. They screamed as they ran, even though many would die. The alien audience made sounds of confusion and disgust. "Look at this," Elder Vosani said. "Humans throwing themselves at death. No strategy, no logic. Just mindless violence." The images changed. Now they showed World War II. Planes diving toward enemy ships, pilots choosing to crash rather than retreat. Soldiers jumping out of trenches to charge machine gun positions knowing most would not survive. "They call this courage," the elder continued. "We call it madness." More images flashed across the screen. Marines storming beaches under heavy fire. Soldiers holding positions against impossible odds. Humans choosing to fight when any logical species would surrender. General Chen wanted to stand up and explain. She wanted to tell them about honor and duty and protecting others, but she had been ordered to stay quiet unless directly asked to speak. A new voice spoke up from across the chamber. It belonged to Commander Yilix of the Heron Collective. His species looked like large insects with multiple arms and compound eyes. "The humans show a disturbing pattern," he said, clicking his mandibles together. "They choose death over retreat. They value individual sacrifice over group survival. This is not the behavior of an intelligent species." More voices joined in. The Aquatic Federation representative spoke through a water-filled helmet. "Our analysis shows humans have a death wish mentality. They glorify dying in battle. This is not compatible with peaceful coexistence." The Synthetic Alliance delegate, a being made of living metal, added its own concerns. Human military history shows constant escalation. They create bigger and more destructive weapons. They seem to enjoy conflict. Such a species cannot be trusted with galactic-level technology. Ambassador Zethkar tried to defend humanity. "Honored colleagues, these images show only one side of human nature. They also create beautiful art. They explore the unknown. They show great kindness to other species." But Elder Vosani raised a thin hand for silence. "Pretty words, Ambassador, but actions speak louder. Let us see more recent examples." The holographic display changed again. Now it showed modern human conflicts. Soldiers in strange lands, fighting enemies they barely understood, pilots flying missions that had little chance of success, special forces teams going into situations where survival was unlikely. Even now, in their modern age, they choose violence over negotiation, Elder Vasani declared. They send their young to die in wars that solve nothing. They celebrate those who throw their lives away for abstract concepts like honor and duty. General Chen's hands tightened into fists. These aliens did not understand. They saw only the death and fighting. They missed the point completely. Humans fought to protect others. They died so that strangers could live free. But she remained silent. The voting began without any human being allowed to speak. One by one, each species cast their decision. The results appeared on screens throughout the chamber. The numbers were crushing. Out of 47 member species, 46 voted to reject humanity's application. Only the Valorians voted in favor. Elder Vasani stood once more. The decision is clear. Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Council. They are deemed too unstable and too dangerous to join civilized space. Furthermore, human ships are banned from entering Council territory without special permission. She turned her ancient eyes toward General Chen. Your species chooses death over logic, violence over peace. Until you learn to value life and embrace rational thinking, you will remain isolated. Perhaps in a few hundred years, when you have evolved beyond your primitive death wish mentality, we will reconsider. The chamber erupted in approving sounds from dozens of different species. General Chen stood up slowly. Her small human delegation followed her lead. Without saying a word, they walked toward the exit. Behind them, she could hear alien voices discussing how wise they had been to reject the dangerous humans. As they reached the door, General Chen heard one final comment from a council member. Perhaps isolation will teach them that throwing lives away is not heroic. It is simply stupid. The doors closed behind the human delegation with a soft hiss. In the corridor outside, General Chen finally allowed herself to show emotion. Her jaw was tight with anger, but her eyes showed something else. Determination. General, one of her aides whispered, what do we do now? General Chen looked back at the massive doors of the council chamber. Behind them, representatives of 47 alien civilizations celebrated their decision to keep humanity locked out of the galaxy. Now, she said quietly, we go home and wait. Someday they will understand what they just threw away. Someday they will need us. She did not know how soon that day would come. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council rejected humanity. The aliens thought they had made the right choice. They continued their peaceful lives across the galaxy, trading goods and sharing knowledge. They felt safe in their logical decisions and rational thinking. But safety was about to end. The first warning came from the edge of Valorian space. A deep space monitoring station went silent without any distress call. Captain Thexmore of the Valorian Defense Fleet was sent to investigate. What he found made his blue blood run cold. The station was gone, not destroyed by weapons or explosions. It was simply not there anymore. In its place was empty space and strange dark particles that seemed to eat light itself. Thexmore sent an emergency message to the Galactic Council. Unknown force has consumed. Station Zeta 7. No debris. No survivors. No explanation. Requesting immediate assistance. More reports came in over the next few days. Stations and small colonies were vanishing. The pattern was always the same. First, all communication stopped. Then survey ships would find nothing but empty space and those strange dark particles. Elder Vasani called an emergency council session. Representatives from all member species gathered in the great chamber. Their faces showed worry and confusion. This was something new, something they had never seen before. The threat is moving toward the core systems, reported Commander Ilex of the Heron Collective. His insect-like features twitched with nervousness. Whatever this force is, it consumes everything in its path. Ships, stations, entire moons. Nothing remains. The Aquatic Federation delegate spoke through bubbling water. Our scientists believe we face a hive mind species. They call themselves the Void Swarm. They eat matter and energy to grow stronger. They cannot be reasoned with or negotiated with. A chill fell over the chamber. The Galactic Council had always solved problems through discussion and compromise. The idea of an enemy that could not be talked to was terrifying. "How many ships do they have?" asked the Synthetic Alliance representative. "That is the problem," Commander Ilex replied. "They do not have ships as we understand them. They are the ships. Living creatures the size of battleships that move through space like a swarm of insects. When they feed, they create more of themselves." Elder Vosani studied the tactical displays. "What are their numbers?" "Unknown. Our scouts report seeing thousands before they are consumed. But the swarm grows larger every day." The council began making plans. They would use their standard defensive strategies, logical formations with overlapping fields of fire, calculated retreat points to minimize losses, computer-predicted battle plans that would save the most lives while inflicting maximum damage on the enemy. Captain Thexmore was placed in command of the defense fleet. He was known for his tactical brilliance and careful planning. He never took unnecessary risks or wasted lives on hopeless attacks. The Void Swarm reached Kepler Station 3 weeks later. The station was enormous, built into a small moon. It housed the Quantum Archive, a massive library containing the collected knowledge of 50 different civilizations. If the swarm consumed it, thousands of years of scientific and cultural progress would be lost forever. Thexmore positioned his fleet in a perfect defensive formation. 200 ships from a dozen different species formed overlapping spheres of protection around the station. Every angle was covered. Every possible attack route was blocked. It was a masterpiece of military planning. The swarm arrived like a living nightmare. Thousands of creatures that looked like a cross between sharks and spiders moved through space without any ships or technology. They were the size of buildings, with dark skin that seemed to absorb energy weapons. They moved in perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. Thexmore ordered his ships to open fire. Energy beams and missile strikes lit up space. The weapons hit their targets, but the creatures simply absorbed the energy. They grew larger and stronger with each hit. "Switch to kinetic weapons," Thexmore ordered. "Physical projectiles only." The solid metal bullets and railgun rounds worked better. They punched holes in the creatures and made them bleed strange dark fluid. But for every creature that died, 2 more seemed to take its place. The swarm began to adapt. They changed their formation to minimize damage from kinetic weapons. They learned to dodge the slower projectiles. Within hours, they had figured out how to counter every weapon the Council fleet used. "This is impossible," muttered Commander Wilex from his command ship. "They learn faster than we can adapt. Every strategy we use, they counter within minutes." Thexmore watched his careful plans fall apart. The swarm ignored his logical formations. They did not follow predictable attack patterns. Instead, they moved like water, flowing around strong points and hitting weak spots that the computers had said were impossible to reach. The creatures reached the outer defense ring. Ships began disappearing, consumed by the dark matter that the swarm left behind. Panic spread through the fleet as captains watched their perfectly planned defense crumble. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving evacuation requests from Kepler Station. They want to abandon the facility." Thexmore stared at the tactical display. Red symbols showed where his ships had been destroyed. The swarm was less than an hour away from the station itself. His logical mind calculated the odds of success. They were almost 0. "Begin evacuation procedures," he ordered. "All non-essential personnel to escape pods. Prepare to retreat to the secondary defense line." But even as he gave the order, Thexmore knew it was hopeless. The swarm would reach the station, the Quantum Archive would be lost, and then the creatures would continue on to the core worlds, consuming everything in their path. Elder Vosani appeared on his command screen. Her ancient face showed fear for the first time in centuries. "Captain, you must hold the line. The knowledge in that archive cannot be replaced." "I understand, Elder," Thexmore replied. "But logic dictates that We preserve our forces for a better defensive position. Staying here means certain death for my entire fleet. As his ships began their calculated retreat, Thexmore found himself thinking about something unexpected. He remembered the human delegation from 6 months ago. He remembered how the Council had mocked their willingness to charge into certain death. For the first time in his military career, Thexmore wondered if logic was enough. As his fleet retreated in perfect formation, following every rule of tactical doctrine, the Void Swarm continued its unstoppable advance toward Kepler Station. The evacuation ships launched from the station, carrying scientists and archives and the accumulated wisdom of 50 civilizations. But they moved slowly, weighted down by their precious cargo. The swarm creatures were faster. Thexmore watched the tactical display and made a decision that went against every instinct his species had developed over millennia of rational thinking. He opened a communication channel to the entire Galactic Council. The humans were right, he said quietly. We think too much to win. Then he ordered his ships to maintain their retreat, following doctrine and logic, while the most important facility in Council space fell to an enemy that did not think at all. The evacuation ships from Kepler Station moved slowly through space. They carried thousands of refugees and the most important data archives in the galaxy. But the Void Swarm was closing in fast. The dark creatures moved like hungry sharks, sensing weakness. Captain Thexmore watched his tactical display with growing despair. His retreat was perfect by every military manual ever written. His ships maintained formation. His casualties were minimal. But the swarm did not care about his tactics, they simply kept coming. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we have an incoming transmission. Unknown vessel requesting permission to enter the battle zone." Thexmore frowned. "Unknown vessel? All Council ships are accounted for. Who else would be crazy enough to come here?" The officer checked his readings twice before answering. "Sir, the ship identifies itself as UES Defiance. It appears to be human." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew humans were banned from Council space. What were they doing here? And why would they come to a battle that was already lost? "Put them on screen," Thexmore ordered. The main display showed the bridge of a human ship. A man in a military uniform sat in the captain's chair. He had short brown hair and scars on his face that spoke of many battles. His eyes were calm, but determined. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Defiance," the human said. "We received your distress signals. We are here to help." Thexmore could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Human vessel, you are in violation of Council space restrictions. You must leave immediately. This battle is hopeless. We are conducting a strategic retreat." Morrison smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Captain, with respect, your strategic retreat is about to get a lot of innocent people killed. Those evacuation ships will never outrun the swarm." "We are following proper military doctrine," Thexmore replied stiffly. "We must preserve our forces for a better defensive position. And while you are preserving your forces, thousands of people are about to die," Morrison said. His voice was steady, but there was anger underneath. "My ship has an experimental fusion drive. We can ram the swarm's command vessel. It might create enough chaos for the evacuation ships to escape." The bridge. Crew exchanged shocked looks. Ram the enemy ship? That was suicide. No rational being would suggest such a thing. "Commander Morrison," Thexmore said carefully, "your plan has a 0% chance of survival. Your ship would be destroyed. Your crew would die. This is not logical." Morrison nodded. "You are right. It is not logical. But sometimes logic is not enough." Before Thexmore could respond, another voice came through the communication channel. It was General Sarah Chen, the human who had been rejected by the Council 6 months ago. "Captain Thexmore," she said, appearing on a split screen. Next to Morrison, "I am serving as an unofficial military advisor to Commander Morrison. I know this plan sounds insane to you. 6 months ago, your people called us insane for being willing to die in battle." "General Chen," Thexmore said, "you should not even be in Council space. And this plan is not just insane. It is pointless. Suicide?" "Is it?" Chen asked. Right now, your logical retreat means those evacuation ships die. Your careful tactics have failed against an enemy that does not follow rules. Maybe it is time to try something that does not follow rules either. Morrison leaned forward in his chair. Captain, I have 23 volunteers on this ship. We all know what this mission means. We are not throwing our lives away for nothing. We are choosing to die so that others can live. Thexmore stared at the human commander. Everything his species had taught him said this was wrong. Sacrifice, without purpose, was the mark of a primitive mind. Logical beings found better solutions that saved everyone, but his logical solutions were not working. The swarm had adapted to every strategy he tried. His computer predictions showed the evacuation ships being caught within the hour. Thousands would die while his fleet retreated to safety. Sir, his tactical officer interrupted. The swarm has changed course. They are heading directly for the evacuation ships. At current speed, they will intercept in 47 minutes. Thexmore felt his heart sink. Even if he turned his entire fleet around, they could not reach the evacuation ships in time. The refugees were going to die, and there was nothing logical he could do to stop it. Morrison was still on the screen, waiting for an answer. Behind him, Thexmore could see other humans moving around the bridge. They looked calm, almost peaceful. These people knew they were about to die, yet they showed no fear. Commander, Thexmore said slowly, even if your plan works, even if ramming the command vessel disrupts the swarm, you will still be dead. Your sacrifice will not bring you back. No, Morrison agreed. It will not. But those evacuation ships have children on them. They have scientists who carry the knowledge of 50 civilizations. They have a future worth saving. My crew and I, we have already lived our lives. This is a good way to end them. General Chen spoke again. Captain Thexmore, 6 months ago, Elder Vosani said humans have a death wish mentality. She said we choose death over logic. Maybe she was right, but maybe that is exactly what this situation needs. Thexmore looked at his tactical display again. Red markers showed the swarm closing in on helpless evacuation ships. His own fleet was too far away to help. Every logical option had been exhausted. You called us insane, Chen continued. Maybe we are, but insanity might be the only thing that can save those people. Morrison stood up from his captain's chair. Sir, I need an answer. My ship is fast, but if we are going to do this, we need to start our run now. Thexmore closed his eyes. Everything in his training, his culture, his species' entire way of thinking said to refuse. This was wasteful suicide. It was primitive thinking. It was everything the Council had rejected about humanity. But his logical thinking had failed. His careful strategies had accomplished nothing except to watch innocents flee toward certain death. Commander Morrison, Thexmore said finally, you have permission to proceed with your insane plan. Morrison smiled, and this time, it was genuine. Thank you, Captain. Take care of those evacuation ships for us. The connection ended. On his tactical display, Thexmore watched a single human ship turn away from safety and head directly toward the largest concentration of enemy forces in the galaxy. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, should we follow them? Thexmore shook his head. No, we follow doctrine. We maintain our retreat. He paused, watching the human ship accelerate toward certain death. And we learn that sometimes courage and logic are not the same thing. The UES Defiance disappeared into the swarm, 24 humans flying toward a battle they could not win for people who had called them insane. For the first time in his life, Captain Thexmore wondered if insanity might be a form of wisdom. The UES Defiance cut through space like a silver arrow aimed at the heart of darkness. Commander Morrison sat in his captain's chair, watching the swarm grow larger on his screen. Thousands of creatures moved in perfect formation, each one the size of a building, all heading toward the helpless evacuation ships. Full power to engines, Morrison ordered. All hands, prepare for impact. His crew moved with calm efficiency. They had all volunteered for this mission knowing they would not survive. Lieutenant Sarah Park at the weapons station, Chief Engineer Tom Rodriguez in the engine room, Communications Officer Lisa Wang at her post, 20 other brave souls spread throughout the ship. "Sir," Park reported, "I am reading massive energy buildup in the center of the swarm. Something big is happening." Morrison leaned forward. On the main screen, he could see the largest creature in the swarm. It was easily 10 times bigger than the others, with dark tentacles that stretched for miles. As he watched, the creature began to glow with a pale, sickly light. "What is that thing doing?" he asked. Park checked her readings twice. "Sir, it appears to be some kind of weapon. The energy signature is off the charts. If I had to guess, I would say it is preparing to fire." Morrison felt his blood run cold. The evacuation ships were still an hour away from safety. If the swarm had a long-range weapon, they could destroy the refugees without even getting close. "Time to weapon discharge?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. The energy is still building, but at this rate, maybe 10 minutes. Morrison did quick calculations in his head. His ship would reach the swarm in 12 minutes. Too late. Whatever that weapon was, it would fire before he could stop it. Then the situation got worse. A new contact appeared on the edge of the swarm. It was massive, easily the size of a small moon. As Morrison watched, the thing unfolded like a flower, made of metal and darkness. Strange symbols glowed along its surface. "Dear God," whispered Wang from her communication station. "Sir, that is not a creature. That is a machine." The orbital cannon was a nightmare of alien engineering. It had been built by some long-dead civilization and taken by the swarm. Now it powered up for the first time in centuries, preparing to crack planets and destroy fleets. Morrison could see the energy building up inside the weapon. Crackling electricity ran along its surface. The air around it began to bend and twist as reality itself struggled to contain the power. "Time to cannon discharge?" Morrison asked, though he dreaded the answer. 30 seconds, Park replied, her voice barely steady. "Sir, that thing could destroy our entire fleet. It could crack Kepler Station like an egg." Morrison stared at the screen. 30 seconds. His ship was still 8 minutes away from the swarm. There was no way to reach the cannon in time. The logical thing to do was turn around and warn the fleet. Let them know what was coming. Prepare for the worst. But Morrison was human. Logic was not always the answer. "All hands," he announced over the ship's communication system. "Change of plans. We are not going for the command vessel anymore. We are going for that cannon." Silence filled the bridge. Everyone understood what he was saying. The cannon was even more heavily defended than the command vessel. Getting close to it was impossible. "Sir," Rodriguez's voice came from the engine room. "That cannon is in the center of the swarm. We will have to go through thousands of those creatures to reach it." "I know," Morrison replied. "But if we do not stop that weapon, it will destroy the evacuation ships and probably half the Council fleet. This is our only chance." Park looked up from her station. "Sir, even if we reach the cannon, ramming it might not work. That thing is huge. Our ship is tiny compared to it." Morrison smiled grimly. "Lieutenant, did you see when the cannon will fire?" 30 seconds, sir." "Why?" "Because that is when it will be most vulnerable. All that energy building up inside, ready to discharge. If we hit it at exactly the right moment, we might cause a feedback explosion." The bridge crew exchanged glances. This was insane even by human standards. Morrison was talking about flying directly into a weapon that could destroy planets, timing their impact to the split second, hoping to cause an explosion that would probably vaporize their ship anyway. "Sir," Wang said quietly, "the odds of success are practically zero." "The odds of doing nothing are definitely zero," Morrison replied. "At least this way we have a chance." He turned to his pilot. "Full acceleration, direct course for the cannon. Do not avoid the creatures. Go straight through them." The Defiance leaped forward like a racehorse. The fusion drive pushed the ship faster than it was ever designed to go. Warning lights flashed on every console as the engines strained beyond their limits. The first swarm creatures noticed them coming. Dark shapes the size of buildings turned toward the tiny human ship. They moved to intercept. But Morrison had surprised them. They expected the ship to avoid them, to find a safe path through their formation. Instead, Morrison flew straight at them. "Ramming speed," he ordered. The Defiance struck the first creature at nearly the speed of light. The impact should have destroyed both ship and creature. Instead, the experimental shields held just long enough for them to punch through. Dark blood splattered across their view screen as they emerged on the other side. More creatures moved to block their path. Morrison flew through them like they were not there. Each impact weakened his shields, but he kept going. Behind him, a trail of dead and wounded creatures marked his passage. 20 seconds to cannon discharge, Park announced. Morrison could see the weapon clearly now. It was beautiful and terrible, covered in symbols that hurt to look at. Energy danced along its surface like caged lightning. The space around it glowed with power. 15 seconds. The largest creatures in the swarm moved to protect their weapon. Things the size of battleships came at the Defiance from all directions. Morrison flew between them, around them, through them when necessary. 10 seconds. The cannon was directly ahead. Morrison could see into its barrel, a tunnel of energy that led to destruction. The power building inside it was beyond imagination. 5 seconds. "All hands brace for impact," Morrison announced. "It has been an honor serving with you." 4, 3, 2. Morrison aimed his ship directly at the cannon's energy core and pushed the engines past their breaking point. 1. The cannon fired. At the exact moment the Defiance struck it. Planet-killing energy met human determination in a collision that lit up space like a new star. The explosion lit up space brighter than a star. When the energy blast from the cannon met the Defiance at ramming speed, reality itself seemed to crack. A wave of destruction rolled outward from the impact point, consuming everything in its path. Captain Thexmore watched from his flagship as the shockwave approached his fleet. "All ships, emergency shields," he ordered. "Brace for impact." The wave hit them like a hammer. Ships rocked and spun as the energy passed through them. Warning! Lights flashed on every bridge, but the shields held. The wave continued past the Council fleet and struck the evacuation ships behind them. For a terrifying moment, Thexmore thought the refugees were doomed. But the wave had lost most of its power by the time it reached them. The evacuation ships shook and their lights flickered, but they survived. Where the orbital cannon had been, there was now only empty space and expanding gas clouds. The massive weapon that could have cracked planets was gone, and somewhere in that glowing debris was the UES Defiance and her crew of 24 volunteers. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the cannon is completely destroyed. But I am reading something else. The explosion damaged the swarm's command structure. They are falling into chaos." Thexmore studied his displays. The swarm creatures that had moved with perfect coordination were now confused and disorganized. They bumped into each other. They attacked randomly. Without their central control, they were just animals in space. "Sir," another officer called out, "I am detecting a small object in the debris field. It appears to be a ship." Thexmore felt his heart skip a beat. "Can you identify it?" "Scanning now." "Sir, it is the human ship, the Defiance. She is badly damaged but still in one piece." Across the bridge, alien faces showed amazement. The humans had survived. Somehow, impossibly, they had rammed a planet-killing weapon and lived to tell about it. "Are there life signs?" Thexmore asked. "Checking." "Yes, sir. I read 24 human life signs. They are all alive." The bridge erupted in cheers. Even the normally serious Valorian crew could not contain their excitement. The humans had done something that every military computer said was impossible. "Get rescue ships to them immediately," Thexmore ordered, "and send word to the Council. The swarm is broken." Within hours, the battle was over. Without their command, ship and orbital cannon, the swarm creatures scattered in all directions. Some fled toward deep space. Others simply stopped moving and floated dead in the void. The threat that had consumed entire star systems was finished. Commander Morrison was brought aboard Thexmore's flagship in a medical pod. He was badly injured but conscious. His first words were about his crew. "Are they all okay?" he asked weakly. All 24 humans survived, Thexmore told him. Your ship saved everyone. Morrison closed his eyes and smiled. Good, that is all that matters. 3 days later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The Great Chamber was filled with representatives from all member species. But this time, there were also humans present. Morrison sat in a wheelchair at the center of the chamber, his crew around him. Elder Vosani rose from her seat. The ancient alien looked older than ever, but her eyes showed something new. Respect. Commander Morrison, she began. 3 days ago, this council called your species insane. We said you had a death wish mentality. We said you choose death over logic. The chamber was completely silent. Every alien representative listened carefully. We were wrong, Elder Vosani continued. What we called insanity was actually a form of wisdom we could not understand. You did not choose death over logic. You chose hope over mathematics. You chose courage over certainty. She turned to address the entire chamber. For 10,000 years, this council has made decisions based on logic and reason. We calculate odds. We minimize risks. We choose the path that saves the most lives with the least cost. Her voice grew stronger. But logic failed us against the swarm. Our computers could not predict their movements. Our strategies could not counter their adaptation. Our careful plans accomplished nothing except to watch innocents die. Elder Vosani looked directly at Morrison. Then 24 humans did something our computers said was impossible. They chose to risk everything for people they had never met. They flew into certain death because it was the right thing to do. She paused, letting her words sink in. The humans did not succeed because they ignored logic. They succeeded because they understood something logic cannot teach. Sometimes the most rational action is to abandon rationality entirely. Commander Ilix of the Heron Collective stood up. Elder Vosani speaks truth. Our logical formations failed because we were too predictable. The humans succeeded because they were unpredictable. They did what no rational being would do. The Aquatic Federation delegate bubbled agreement through her water mask. The swarm adapted to every logical strategy we used. But they could not adapt to pure human courage because courage follows no rules. One by one, representatives from every species stood and voiced their agreement. The chamber filled with voices in dozens of languages, all saying the same thing. Humanity had shown them something they had forgotten. Sometimes the heart was wiser than the mind. Elder Vosani raised her hand for silence. The council must vote again on humanity's membership, but first I propose something else. I propose that we ask the humans to teach us. Morrison tried to stand from his wheelchair but was too weak. Instead, he spoke from where he sat. Teach? You what, Elder? Teach us to be brave when logic says to be afraid. Teach us to hope when mathematics says to despair. Teach us what you call adaptive warfare, but what I now understand is simply refusing to give up. The vote was unanimous. All 47 species voted to accept humanity into the Galactic Council. But more than that, they voted to create a new position, tactical advisor to the Galactic Defense Force. The first being to hold that rank would be Commander Jake Morrison. Morrison looked around the chamber at faces that had once called him insane. Now they looked at him with something approaching awe. Elder Vosani, he said, 6 months ago you said humans choose death over logic. You were right, but you misunderstood what that means. He gestured to his crew, battered but alive around him. We do not choose death because we want to die. We choose death because some things are worth dying for. And when you are willing to die for something, you will find ways to live for it too. The chamber erupted in applause that lasted for several minutes. When it finally died down, Elder Vosani spoke one last time. Welcome to the Galactic Council, humanity. We have much to learn from each other. Morrison smiled. Yes, we do. But I think you will find that what you call insanity, we just call Tuesday. The laughter that followed was the sound of 50 civilizations discovering that sometimes the best logic is no logic at all.